Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, CII-CDT, for this opportunity. It's a privilege to be moderating this session, which is the effective employee management, the requisite interventions. It's a very relevant topic, and our objective today would be to bring forth key learnings, key adaptations, key innovations, key interventions which have been curated in organizations during these pandemic times. Post huge business impact, the most impacted in the organizations were the people. Obviously, business took the biggest hit during these pandemic times, but of course, it was the employees who took a big hit. They stretched, and the most stretched functions during these times were, of course, human resources. They had to look at new ways of working, new ways to engage employees, digital ways of working, handling people with a lot of fears and anxieties. So that was the role the HR played during this time, and we are still doing that. Operations, the people who head operations also went through a quite a challenging time during this pandemic, from looking at restarting the manufacturing operations, ensuring productivity, keeping in mind the social distancing, and also keeping employee safety and health in mind. So these were, I think, very challenging times for operations also. And then comes finance. Finance also, I think, had a pretty busy time looking at the cash flows, looking at sustainability of the organization, and doing business scenario planning for the coming quarters. So I think everybody, including I think the entire operational team, HR, finance, they were super busy during this time. Although everybody was working from home, that was I think the need of the hour. But I hear everybody has been talking about that it's been a super stretch time. So in this session, we would be trying to understand from the super panel which we have, how did they cope with these things, what they did, what was the learning. So let me first briefly introduce my panelists, and it's a privilege to be moderating a panel of such elite panelists with me. So let me introduce first Mandeep Kaur. Mandeep is the strategic human resource leader, and she's handled areas like information technology, telecommunications, information technology enabled services, consulting, and manufacturing. So she is currently in IBM India. She is also the zonal head for Gurgaon for NHRDN, member of HR committee CII North Region, and she is a very prolific speaker, which you will see shortly. So welcome, Mandeep. So I'll skip my introduction. So uh, next, we have Mr. Harshvendra Soin. He's a global chief people officer and marketing head for Tech Mahindra. And so if you read his introduction, it talks about the best of the best organizations he has worked in. He's held senior level positions. So he has been with Tech Mahindra, and he's also held the global leadership role as a CEO for their operations in Canada. Prior to this role, he was a chief people officer at Fortis Healthcare Limited, which I also held for about 4 years previously. He has worked with Aditya Birla Retail Limited as Chief People Officer before Fortis. He was also in a senior position with Bharti Enterprises, and then he went on to become the head HR for Bharti Retail Limited. So Harsh is a gold medalist in personal management and industrial relations from Chandigarh, UBS. So, and he's also done his law from Punjab University, which is my alma mater also. So, welcome Harsh, and looking forward to hearing
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you.
Then we have Mr. Mahesh Kaikini. He's the plant head, Hero Motocorp Limited. He's currently working as plant head of Gurgaon plant and looking after also the new model center and looking after performance and durability testing of the new models. So he is a hardcore operational and people's person, and very happy to note that he's a firm believer in strengthening employee engagement by fostering teamwork, competency development, and skill enhancement. He's got a very pragmatic approach to collective bargaining and handled a lot of union labor matters. So great to have you and to be able to listen to your perspective, Maheshji. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, last but not the least, Rahul. Rahul is AVP Global HR Technology with Tata Communications Limited, and he has got a rich blend of industry and consulting experience. And he's been working in areas like business transformation using artificial intelligence, RPA, and the big data. He started his career as a business strategy consultant. He's worked with clients across US, Europe, and India, across various industry verticals. He has been a keynote speaker, a very prolific speaker, and is a very known panelist. He goes to NASSCOM, SHRM, CII, India HR Analytics Summit, IIT Delhi, MDI, and the list is endless. So we are in for a very enriched and learning experience in the next few minutes. So currently, Rahul is handling the HR digital transformation using artificial intelligence and cutting edge technology at Tata Communications. So
Thank you,
as
Rajiv.
you now have noticed, this is the elite panel which we have. So it's a mix of operations, uh, analytics, data, HR. So we are in for a very enriching time. So basically, what I would like to leave you with some thoughts so that you can maybe develop on it when you talk about it. So the thoughts I want to leave behind is as to what has been the most remarkable revelation or discovery during these times. What has been the silver lining behind the dark cloud of this pandemic? What have been your silver lining? How digitalization has helped in engaging employees during these times? Any key learnings in the new ways of working in remote employee management? What has been your new normal? Because this word is now becoming a very normal word. So, what has been your new normal? So, and how are you trying to institutionalize within your workspace? And so, these are some of the areas. Of course, handling. How did you handle people anxieties and fears? Because that also has been worrying a lot of us. So, how digital technology helped you achieve all this? How did you keep connected? So I would request each panelist to take about 5 to 6 minutes because we are very short of time and we have a lot to discuss. So 5 to 6 minutes each, give your views, and then I have some specific questions for you, which I'll ask you post your deliberations, and then we'll end the session by looking at what are the takeaways we've achieved today. So I would request the following sequence. Of course, ladies always come first, so Mandeep starts, then Mahesh, and then Harsh, and then Rahul. If that's okay with you, then we can start. Let me request Mandeep to initiate the process and share her views with us. Over to you, Mandeep.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Can you all hear me fine, sir? Am I loud
Yes,
enough?
yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes, we can hear
Thank
you
you.
now.
It's a privilege to be here today. Thank you, CI, and thank you, Mr. Kapoor, for giving this opportunity. And I look forward to being in this panel with my esteemed colleagues, contribute and share. Since March 2020, we've heard very new terms which were never in our vocabulary earlier. Global pandemic, PPE, lockdown, lockdown over, lockdown restart,
Sanitization.
sanitization, social distancing, home quarantine, and the one which is most common now is community spread. Our kids have also picked up these words. It's everyday language for everybody. I'm going to share a couple of new terminologies which we've, you know, picked up and I'm going to share with a twist. The first is virtual happy hours. We've all heard of happy hours. Last Friday, all of us who are in the NCR team in the business, decided we've had enough. You can't meet up, you can't get together. So what do you do? So me and a couple of colleagues, we sent out an invite. There were three prerequisites. One, Friday evening, video has to be on. Two, casuals. Three, a drink in hand. So about 1.5, 2 hours, all of us got together on this virtual Happy Fridays. And what did we do? We just shared experiences. So somebody showed his aquarium that he built during the lockdown period. The other person shared, the garden he's cultivated during the lockdown period. Some of the men shared tips on how to look busy so that they do not get piled on with household work, you know. So that's a way of reaching out to people, sharing personal experiences and connecting. The other term that I'm going to use is dancing on our tunes. So another leader sent out an invite and asked his team members to come dressed casually, and get yoga mats. So everybody assumed it's going to be a mindfulness session or a yoga session. The moment they all came in, the millennials in that department took over. They played music, and everybody in the team, including the senior leaders, had to dance. So the millennials called it dancing to our tunes. We are making the bosses dancing to our tunes. And very different way of reaching out, engaging across generations. The third one came as a surprise. So as a surprise in one of the team meetings, everybody was told to just put on their videos, because video putting on is not mandatory. If you're comfortable, you can put it on. Everybody was told, if you're comfortable, please put on your videos for a minute to see how you're working, how you are today. And it was a global call. So one of the gentlemen was actually sitting in his laundry room in the house with the washing machine on his side and clothes, etc., hanging on the other side. So we were very surprised to see where he's sitting and taking the calls. We asked him, how come you're here? So he says, well, you have all the children in the house, you have all the elders in the house, my wife's working too. This is the most peaceful place in the whole house to sit and work. This is about adaptability and resilience. So I just shared 3 examples of how to engage. If we are not able to do it, in person, how to still have those informal get-togethers, how to engage across generations, and how employees today are adapting and being resilient. So with that, sir, I just wanted to kick off the discussion as such. Over to the next one, Weber, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mandeep. Rajiv, can I continue?
Yeah, please, Maheshji.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Rajiv, for the introduction, and Mandeep also on the remarkable points that you made. I would look at the point from 3 areas. One is so basically just a few months ago we had not heard of this COVID-19. So it was a change that we were not aware of. Now that we are aware, we have no other option but to change ourselves. So that's the important thing. We did some kind of a preparation during what I call pre-lockdown. During the pre-lockdown, whatever information was available to us as far as the impact of this particular virus is concerned, we had it shared across the functions, and try to see how we can prepare ourselves. We did look at what kind of impacts it can have based on the information available on what is happening around the world. And, prepared kinds of do's or don'ts. We also prepared certain posters, videos, etc., as well as made certain preparations as to how things are going on. And fortunately, the organization took a call 3 days before the actual lockdown started, and we actually declared the lockdown from 22nd, that was Sunday, and 23rd onwards. Actually, the government started lockdown from 24th onwards. So before the lockdown started, we did have some kind of a pre-mocktail in different areas where there is a mass movement happening, so that in case something of this kind happens where we find people infected, how do we evacuate and what is it that we do? Now, mock drill is a normal practice as far as the industries are concerned, manufacturing industries are concerned, but the evacuation process during such times is very different from the evacuation process that happens during this particular thing. So this is something where there has to be calmness. People can't be in a hurry. They have to maintain social distancing and make sure that without panic, people move out softly. So which is what we tried, and we had certain learnings, and accordingly the same thing was shared across. Then during the lockdown, the most important thing was the virtual connect, which we maintained with people. The best part came from our Chairman Managing Director, Mr. Pawan Munjal himself. So far, he has had almost around 35 town halls, more time with the employees as well as the dealers across the country, the supply chain partners across the country, the global distributors, financial analysis, etc. And that was something where there was a transparency of communication across the organization, and people knew what is happening and what is the management thinking, what are we thinking about it. And parallelly, there was a lot of work going on in the manufacturing plants as well as the offices as to how do we prepare post lockdown. So we had a kind of a business continuity plan in which we knew what all preparations are required at various places, various stages of manufacturing as well as office. We introduced extensive measures for maintaining the social distancing. There are thermal scanners put, social distancing markings clearly made, posters, videos displayed across, touchless tags and touchless sanitizers put across at various places. And as much as possible, we have also put, sanitized, frequently sanitized curtains across the manufacturing places where people have to work in close contact proximity. And as Mandeep mentioned, at different levels, depending on the severity of the process, people have masks like what I am wearing now, which is compulsory. I am sitting in office comfortably, as well as the face shield and the PPE suits at various locations wherever people are working. That's something which we did during the lockdown. At the same time, the organization also rose to the occasion, and even the business was zero. But at the same time, the CSR activity took the front seat. At that time, we did a lot of other things by which we could see how much we can do to contribute to the society. Some of them, we started, the food packets distribution to the migrants and to the needy people across. This was happening from all the canteens across the country, from all the manufacturing plants in their respective locations. So far, we distributed more than 10 lakh food packets. Second was we took a special license and started manufacturing sanitizers inside the plant itself because one of the ingredients, what we call IPA, isopropyl alcohol, is a common ingredient during painting. So that's how we were familiar with the chemical, which is how we could take the, it's a temporary license that we have taken only dedicated to CSR activity. So far we have distributed around 60,000 liters of sanitizer across the country, all through CSR. We also hired a mask making company and placed an order and also distributed these 3-ply masks, surgical masks across the hospitals and to various rural centers like what we call Asha workers and Anganwadi, etc. And by virtue of our being a two-wheeler manufacturer, we also took out the duly registered vehicles and then refurbished them and gave to many of the health workers. 2,000 of them were distributed. We also made cart attachments to the motorcycles and what we call first responder vehicle, which are still under distribution right now. And these are for people who are physically incapacitated. They can go from the rural areas or still towns to the nearest hospital. So these are some of the activities that we have done. We have also developed proto ventilators
Yeah.
the manufacturing plants as well as our R&D center in Jaipur.
So, Mahesh, I wanted to ask you one thing. I think great list of activities you've talked about. And I'm sure that would have kept your employees motivated when they hear about such positive activities going on.
Yeah.
I think Hero Motocorp was the quickest to ramp up to the current level. I think that is something which we in the auto sector keep talking about. So,
Yeah.
what is the in one line? What is the mantra behind it? How did you manage? Because you're very quick to ramp up to almost pre-COVID levels, and you had no shortage of manpower.
No, I think the last point was not correct. We did have a manpower shortage, definitely. But as I mentioned, during the lockdown period, we did a lot of preparations because of which we were able to maintain. And in fact, we did start with 100 vehicles on the first day, and then gradually the learnings were very quick as to what worked well and what did not work well and how we can modify. And we were quick to make course corrections and then accordingly ramp up. Uh, the labor which had gone during the lockdown was the only problem. So that's how we could, we also had this inkling well in advance. So we had a manpower bank available with us. So we could immediately organize that and then go for recruitments in the parallel process. And this kept on happening not only with us. This is something. All the practices that we did was in the entire value chain. It went on to the dealerships. It went on to the supply chain partners, and even the manpower bank details were shared with the supply chain partners. Also, we also supported them in manpower recruitment. We definitely did have a little initial hiccup, but then picked up fast on the manpower. As far as the processes are concerned, as we mentioned, we did ramp up quickly, mainly because the process of manufacturing is exactly the same. Only the process of adaptation to the new normal was something which was taking time, where we did a lot of PDCA, plan to check and action, and because of which we could do immediate course
I had
correction.
a specific question on that on the new normal. I'll come to that question later.
Yeah,
So thank you
yeah,
so much, Mahesh, for sharing your valuable experiences during this time. Thank you so
yeah.
much for that.
Thank you.
We'll come back
Thank
with some questions later. So may I request Harsh to give us his views also now?
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv, and lovely to hear Mandeep and Mahesh talk about different aspects. Mine would be probably very different from the context of the industry. Remember, we have 125,000 employees across 90 countries with about 100 nationalities, and we got hit in the first wave itself. When Wuhan got hit, we have an office in Wuhan. When Italy got hit, we have a large setup in Italy. And therefore, we have learnings are very quick. And, amongst all the IT companies, we were up 95% in the first 72 hours. And the reason we could do that was that we actually asked our employees to give us their own laptops. We reconfigured with the security overlap and send it back to them. And that was the fastest that we could get laptops up. And the rest we moved desktops. So in the first 72 hours, we were about 95% up. And that was very important because we, as a company, run all the banks in the back end, the e-commerce, the telecom providers all have a back end with IT. And if we were not up, probably none of that would really work. In my opinion, there has been a big reset in the way companies are going to work. And the big reset is going to be in three phases. The phase one was what I call survive. And everybody scrambled and did your BCPs and moved work from home. We were already used to work from home, unlike many other industries, but we obviously had to do a 95% work from home, which was not very easy. The second phase was revive, where we are today, where we are reimagining the workplace with current tools and getting people back into their offices. And as you can see, I saw Mahesh in the office, I'm in the office. But we are not really in a hurry, but that is the phase we are going to. And the third one is live, which is going to be the use of science-based tools to actually reimagine how the workplace will look. I think both Mandeep and Mahesh talked about touchless experiences. Let me give you a perspective on what the shift to the touchless experience is going to be. One, clearly there's going to be a shift from personal to, from shared to personal devices. Clearly from a whole touch environment or, to see a voice and gesture environment is going to be clearly there. And lastly, facial recognition is going to be large. And you can see that change happening everywhere. Um, just to give you some examples in my 7 minutes, in TechM, we were slightly ahead of the curve because we already had a few tools for people management. Our entire attendance to payroll is done through a facial recognition system. There is complete zero ID cards in the company. And, it also is a moodometer. When you look at the screen, it captures your attendance to payroll. We also have, as you know, one of the first non-human employees in HR ever. That was K2. And that humanoid was completely functioning during COVID because that's COVID proof and could continue to answer all the queries across employees. Also, our chatbot, which actually does everything from applying for your leaves to doing your recruitment, also did yoga, and we actually call it Asana. It is our yoga bot, but we had to innovate and quickly come up with a few things. One for the company and one for the community. So we have a Book My Seat app, which clearly, before a person comes into the office, obviously because of the social distancing, the seats are lesser. So you book your seat and come. There's a canteen app where you order your food and just go and pick it up. There is a Dove app where every onboarding is virtual, including documentation. But even for the government, for example, all the e-pass system that you see in NCR was done by us. In Arogya Setu, the whole Arogya Mitra e-consultation is done by TechM. So we obviously had to do a lot more than just look at our company. Go on from there, I have another 2.5 minutes. Let me draw a parallel on what I think the new normal will be. In the new normal, I think we will see some fundamental shifts. One, the rise of flexible workforce, gig worker, part-time worker. We already have a considerable amount of gig worker working for us, obviously because of cost pressures, as well as the ease of getting people in. Secondly, of course, we have seen that a mix of remote and working will be clearly there. 30% of our workforce will always work from home. Clearly, we see wellness as one of the key parameters of retention rather than salary. And the organization impact is that touchless experience everybody will have to do, whether they like it or not. Whereas earlier there used to be single skills, now it is going to be pie-shaped skills or multi-skills. So reskilling will become clearly important. And while earlier everybody used to crib about technology having created a generation of antisocial people, I think that came to the rescue of all of us, as you can see from the what we are using as collaborative tools. I think that's going to be a fundamental change. Most of us didn't ever use these tools, and now we are all adept at using them. And I think clearly the worker, and the workplace will be impacted. And technology is going to be a big game changer, whether to collaborate, innovate, or even reach people in a scenario which is post-COVID. And that's my opening remark, but over to you, Rajiv. I think I've taken almost 7 minutes.
Thank you so much, Harsh. I think you were absolutely on time and very valuable input from you. And from a different perspective, because you heard manufacturing, it's great to hear from your perspective also. So let's move on to Rahul and hear it out before we move on to the questions.
Thank you, Rajiv. Am I audible?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. See, I will speak more from the technology point of view because this whole COVID situation has worked like a catalyst for the digital transformation. And you must have seen a lot of organizations are now picking up on the digital transformation as of now, because earlier it was more of automating the processes and there wasn't anything around putting the intelligence into the processes, because now when a lot of employees are working from home, there are few things which has come up very nicely because of this crisis situation, and that is personalization and employee experience, because the employees are working from different locations and they have different type of bandwidths to work on. I'm talking about the internet bandwidths. So again, how your digital processes or your systems are being supported on different type of bandwidths. That is very, very important. Second thing is this: they are not in the offices where they can dive into the ocean of the contents and they can pull that out. So the personalization become a very, very important thing. So my role was majorly how I can use the technology, artificial intelligence technologies, just to enable that personalized experience to the employee and create that experience. Because if you look at most of our workforce, they are millennials. They are used to work on, they do shopping on Amazons, they watch videos on Netflix, they work on Facebook. So they expect the same type of experience when it comes to the internal or the corporate systems. So I think at Tata Communication, we definitely picked up a project which we called internally employee experience and the value add project, where we are developing a layer on the top of our this thing of our all our systems, so that we can provide that personalized employee experience. And again, we have ensured that it works on every bandwidth, whether it's low bandwidth 2.4 megahertz or it is basically a 5G, whatever it is, so that it supports and the employees are able to do that. For us, moving into the work from home wasn't very difficult. The reason being because almost all our processes were automated, and Tata Communication already has a work from home policy. So I think for us, switching on to work from home was relatively very easy. And I think we also developed a global BCP, which is Business Continuity Committee, and there was a representation all across the globe, and we were able to do that. Especially from my shared services, my major BCP matrix was the employee should be paid on time, irrespective of the region they are in. For me, the difficult portion was when I was dealing with Germany and France, because there was a complete lockdown. My payroll partner can anytime go off, so we have to develop the plan B also, and it was there. Thank God we didn't use plan B, but we were ready with the plan B in case, because only one matrices, as I told, was the employee should be paid on time, irrespective of whatever situation it may be in. So I think these are some of the things which we did. I think in the benefit of the time, I will give it back to you, Rajiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. I think that's very crisply put forward. And the work from home, I think, let's say I also come from manufacturing, and work from home used to be something, okay, fine, we can't do it. It's more of service sector which does work from home. But when it was required, I think we absolutely seamlessly started working from home, the entire team of our organization. We never missed a beat. Most of our data was digitized already there. So we never missed a single beat. And it's been now 3+ months we've been working from home partially. I think that's a great learning for all of us, because manufacturing was never a work from home scenario. But now I think we've learned also, and we are making plans going forward. Okay, thanks, I think, panelists, for their quick views on this topic of keeping employees engaged and how to use technology and different modes of technology. And now I've got some very pointed questions I'm going to be asking to specific panelists. So I request you to take about a minute, 2 minutes to answer them. First, my question is to Mandeep. So Mandeep, I would like to ask you, what have you done for adaptation and resilience to the new normal set by COVID-19 for such a diversified workforce like yours? And secondly, what do you expect your employees would say when they look back at this period and reflect upon their experiences and feelings? How was this period? So over to you, Mandeep.
Sure. Thank you, sir. And when I talk about what have we done, I'll not just talk about, a specific sector. I'll talk about it relates to your organization, ours, Mahesh, or Rahul's. In everybody's context, I think the topmost three concerns which are there in employees' mind today, be it somebody who's working from home or be it offices, is the ability. The first concern is, am I able to take care of my family in today's situation? The second one is, what is going to be the economic impact of all that's happening around us? We had the cake and the icing on it is now the China factor come in. And the third one is job security. For each person, irrespective of level, functions, or industry. I think the key here is to be aware that these are the topmost concern in every employee's mind today, and empathize with that. And when you do both, be aware and empathize, ensure that when you are communicating with the, I think this video is on, I can hear a bit
Yep.
background noise. Yeah, thank you.
So request others to mute, please. Carry on, Mandeep.
Thank you. So when you keep these three aspects in mind, ensure that there is a two-way communication happening. That's very critical. Engage and then listen. Because when you listen, you understand how you have to adjust your next dialogue with your employees.
Absolutely.
Second is reassure and support, be it somebody who's today gone to work or working from home. Reassurance, support, clarify and empathize as to what you are doing to protect them as employees and to protect the business as a whole, because it's very important to understand it from both perspectives. Some
Absolutely.
actually from an overall perspective. Thirdly, and I'm again talking about communication because sometimes we miss this part. Communicate early and often. Be very transparent. Do an overload of it because it's very important to give relevant and timely information because that's what everybody is looking for.
Absolutely.
Reach out to your people through different channels. Today, as Harshad mentioned, we've got different modes of communication, digital available. Tap each one of them. And last but not the least, support your leaders because every employee is today looking up to their leader to be reassured that my leader cares for me. So support them with what is needed in terms of policies, processes to make it be very fair and consistent for people. That's part A of the question you had. The second one is, as an employee, when I look back, this is going to be one of the defining moments in everybody's career, not just career, in everybody's lifetimes, including our children. That's what this global pandemic has done to us. I think what we should aim at is that at the end of it, and there will be an end of it, I always call it TTSP, this too shall pass. I'm very, very, very clear about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At the end of it, there are three things that our employees should be able to say. One, that our company rarely displayed the values that we live by. Two, it was a very tough time when it happened and what we went through. But they should be able to say at the end of it that we are very proud as an organization how our company handled it and took care of us. And the third one, and I speak as an HR person because that's what we always look at when we look at employee engagement, is that they will always recommend and share this as a model, that our company did this when we went through this crisis. I think if we are able to keep those three things in mind and handle what we are into today, it'll be very, very helpful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mandeep. Thank you so much. And I'm sure, I think this was the real leadership assessment for the organizations. How did you behave in this crisis time? I think this was an assessment, performance assessment of leadership of all the organizations. Thank you so much for putting it across like that. So my next question is to Harsh. So Harsh, you mentioned about working from home. Hybrid working is going to be the new normal, working from office and working from home. What will be the top challenges for a leader as this trend evolves? Harsh, maybe you're on mute.
Yes. So great question. Thank you, Rajiv, for asking that. And that's, yes, that's going to be a reality for all. Because what is going to happen is, while earlier your office experiences, and people called it employee experience, we called it human experiences, were important. Today, it's about at home experience and at office experience. It is about turning the peacetime generals into wartime heroes. because leadership itself has undergone a huge change. And, command and control is now in changed to inspiration and resilience. And a few changes clearly will happen. And we've seen that, one, as the work will change, collaboration and how to collaborate with people are going to completely change. Innovation always essentially wanted people to co-locate themselves and work together. But today, innovation has to be, in an environment which is dispersed. Culture. How do you get your company culture into the new employees and everybody else when they're all virtually never, talking to you and never met you? The new employees in the last 3 months who have joined us have physically never seen us. So the challenge of, disseminating the company culture down to the last person standing is going to be huge. Then, of course, we are all facing screen fatigue. We are all facing double shift fatigue. And the psychological issues are rising. While initially COVID got us the physical problem and you had, thermal screenings and, a lot of people talked about doctor consultation, etc. But today it's the most psychological impact which is taking over. And therefore, are we ready as a company? And we have to ask this question to ourselves to really deal with this psychological impact. And because that's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with. Because we're talking about efficiency, productivity, improvement, and people have gone crazy with the euphoria of work from home. Because you save time commuting, but we don't realize people are actually getting stressed out. The other thing that I want to lay with this audience is that while the initial euphoria is great, we have to also understand the reality of India. One, you still have power cuts. Two, you have 6 people living in a room where it's not easy for a BPO employee to log on and take a customer call. And your Wi-Fi still struggles. So till your 5G actually comes in and stabilizes your network, this is the reality. And unfortunately, it is very difficult to work from home forever as compared to working from home for a couple of months. So I think we will have to answer those, and those are all going to be challenges that we will face as we go forward.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you so much. And one, I think, revelation of which we learned working from home is good when you are working from home. But when everybody is working from home, it's not a good scenario.
Yes.
Okay.
As I said, work at home and it's work from home.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harsh, once again. And my next question is to Mr. Mahesh. So you mentioned about the communication channels which you had during this time. One is communication. Second is actually getting it done, convincing people. I think that is a very tough part. So how did you manage to bring this new normal to the people and actually getting it done?
Yeah, good one, Rajiv. I should say first, we should have a structure and systems in place. As I mentioned, the first thing was that we were very clear that the job security point, which Mandeep mentioned, is something where the assurance was very clearly, crystal clear, given to people across that there is no issue as far as the job security is concerned. Second was the day lockdown was announced, within 2 days, advance full salary payments were made to people across the entire employee structure. They were all paid. Then, as I mentioned, during the lockdown period, we had a cross-functional team which worked on the business continuity plan, in which the structure was made. How are we going to ensure the business? And there were clearly laid down SOPs for various aspects, and we made sure that there are teams which are making sure that those SOPs are followed. And when we started off, as I mentioned, we started on a low key, that is with 100 vehicles only. And we had planned well in advance that people have to be thermally screened. They need to have social distancing. We had the mandatory Arogya Setu application app, which had to be shown. And we also had a hero app, health app, which was in addition to Arogya Setu, which also needs to be filled by everybody. But 90% of the people could do it because they had smartphones, but some of them could not because those who still had the keypad phones. So they had there is an option of Arogya Setu in which we have IVR facility through which they can get a message of Arogya Setu showing that you are safe. And at the same time, for Hero Health declaration, they had to fill the forms, which was very limited. And that is the entry requirement. And people had sanitation all through at various stages of work. We had staggered shift timings. We had staggered lunch timings, staggered tea timings, which were compulsorily made and ensured. If we look at the canteen capacity, we have 1400 seating at one time, but we straight away reduced it to 150 to 200 in one batch, and we increased the number of batches. Similarly, there were staggered tea timings. Even the areas where the work is going on, we had multiple shift timings. Some would come at 6 in the morning, some would come at 7 in the morning, some at 8. So like that, there was, depending on the MHA guidelines of the availability of the timing by which people movement could happen. So we followed that and staggered the timings, and we frequently kept on changing it, making sure that the flow of people is smooth. The next point was communication and communication. The communication was two-way. One was to communicate to people on the business continuity plan, in which we held extensive webinars to staff and the entire maximum of the workforce. And at the same time, there were trainers who were internally trained on this, and they in turn went and communicated to the people. And we also had interactive sessions with people in which we took suggestions, we took improvements, and we went on making course corrections, which was happening on a continual basis, and it is still continuing.
Thank you, sir.
Something which I should say. Yeah.
Thank you, Mahesh. I think that was wonderfully answered. So I had a question for Rahul, but now I'm swapping it with an audience question because it relates to you, Rahul. So, and we have just a minute to go. So the question is, how people analytics will help in adding value to the business, how it will help the business to be cost leader, how this strategic action will help to be different. We can predict the unpredictables and act swiftly in advance. So this is a question which has come from the audience. So since
Okay.
you deal in the big data and all analytics, so over to you.
See, we use artificial intelligence in a lot of areas in HR. So let me start with some of the areas where the business results can be quickly seen, starting with the talent acquisition to the talent management to the learning and development and to the well-being. So these are the different areas where we use artificial intelligence, because the beauty of using these type of technology is because it is more predictable. It makes you more proactive rather than you reacting in a certain way. Being a reactive, it makes you more proactive. And I think when we develop on these technologies, or when we develop on these algorithms, sorry to use some technical words, when we work on these algorithms, we ensure that each of these algorithms are aligned with the business outputs. For example, when I'm hiring somebody and I'm using it at the time of sourcing, my intent is how can I reduce my hiring manager's time, invested time in this hiring, so that he can get it and help him to get the best suitable candidate in just 2 or 3 matches, so that he don't have to invest too much of time in conducting those interviews and basic things are being done. In the employee well-being, in the COVID type of situation, we just use some of the already available in the market. We procured the licenses where it works on the artificial intelligence and the big data technology at the back end, which helps the employees to monitor their mental, psychological, and the physical health, and help them to see where exactly they stand. And they make a lot of recommendations around the articles and all those which the employees can go through. Besides the other well-being program, I'm just sharing with you what are the different things, because the employee is engaged, if he is happy, if he is satisfied, there is a direct study which directly says it has a huge impact on the business outcomes. So I think
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience got the answer. So I think we are just on time, and I would like to thank everyone here for wonderful.
Rajiv, can I make one point?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Mandeep made a few key points. So I want to mention here because we are in the manufacturing industry, a lot of people working here. One aspect was what's called behavior fatigue, which is something which we observed in people. At times you tend to, go slow on not maintaining social distance or maybe sometime remove the mask or not follow the norms of washing hands for 20 seconds and all that. This is something where again the frequency of communication and interacting with people and asking everybody to become a health ambassador and take responsibility for what they are doing, not only for what they are doing, but also for what they are not doing. So that irrespective of what the response is from the other person, please keep on communicating and having the conscience very clear. This was one aspect. And second aspect is there were continuous health updates on emails to people. There were stress management workshops also, as well as health guidelines available to people so that in case they need any connect on personal problems which they are facing because of the situation, they could seek help. So these are the 2 points which I just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaur. Thanks for adding these points. And we are just out of time. So once again, thank you so much for your wonderful views, Harsh, Rahul, Mandeep, Mahesh. Excellent views. In a short span of time, I think this is the best we could have managed in 50 minutes. So once again, thank you for agreeing to be the panelist. And it was a pleasure and privilege for me to be moderating this panel for all of you. So I'm sure we met the objective we had. I'm sure audience would have got some key takeaways. I'm not repeating them for the shortage of time. So thank you once again, and thank you CII for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. Well done. Stay safe and
Thank
all
you,
the best.
Rajiv, and thank you everyone else. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
So
Rajiv.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.